Georgia. We are the National Socialist Movement and the Nationalist Front.
It was a controversial and fiery morning in Newnan as about 36 neo-Nazis met up with more than hundreds of counter-protesters. That neo-Nazi rally has been stirring up controversy in the small metro Atlanta city ever since the group applied for a permit to hold that rally several weeks ago. And today, during the rally, the majority of business owners in downtown Newnan shut their doors as members of the National Socialist Movement, along with hundreds of counter-protesters, moved into town. We have team coverage tonight in Newnan. We're going to begin with Doug Richards, who's joining us live near Greenville Street Park, where that rally was held. Doug?
Well, and we want to set the scene here. There is about an 8-foot fence behind me, and then beyond that, there is another barrier, and that is where the protesters were. Within the park here, on the other side of the fence, about 70 yards away, over there is the podium from which the neo-Nazis spoke. And all this was over about 30 neo-Nazis who showed up today. They showed up about an hour late, mostly dressed in black military fatigues and carrying stylized flags bearing an angular symbol that replaced the Nazi swastika. Their message was about white nationalism, anti-immigration, anti-liberalism. They shouted from a stage for less than an hour to an audience of news media, and they
Please y'all with some wonderful is in opposition to us. That would be incorrect. We have a lot of people.
And they kept the protesters about 70 yards away.
Something called the Constitution in this country.
All you out there, completely turned off by our message, you need to face the fact that Western civilization is white civilization. And without the white race, there is no Western civilization. And without Western civilization, there's no civilization.
It's always a recruitment opportunity for us, so we want all the people that contacted us from the city and from the surrounding areas to be able to get in touch with us. We'll follow up, we'll recruit them, and bring them onto our side.
So precisely at 5 o'clock, it appeared that the city turned off the electricity, which shut down the loudspeakers, which sent the neo-Nazis on their way back to wherever it was they came from. Many of them were clearly from out of state. The permit holder was from Detroit, Michigan. It's worth noting that there were hundreds of law enforcement people here, and they did a remarkable job of not only keeping the Nazis in one separate area and the protesters in another separate area, but within eyeshot and earshot of each other, but also controlling the ingress and egress of the 30 or so neo-Nazis who came into downtown and slipped out of downtown, apparently without incident. Live in Newnan, Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
All right, Doug, thank you very much. From next, we're going to go to John Schierick. And John, we know 10 people were arrested at the rally, and police are telling us they were all part of those counter-protesters, right?
Yes, they were. The counter-demonstrators came here to downtown Newnan to send a personal message to the representatives of the National Socialist Movement, the neo-Nazis who were rallying in the park. And they got their chance.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
This is why they were here, for this moment, just after 4 o'clock, when the neo-Nazis showed up and the protesters shouted their condemnations. The two groups separated from each other by about the length of a football field, and fencing and barricades, and dozens of Georgia State troopers in riot gear. Protesters could barely see the neo-Nazis. They sure couldn't hear them, but the neo-Nazis couldn't help but hear the protesters.
I just think hate in any form is not right. That's why we're not out here violently, and we're not out here mad at anyone. I think we're just standing up for those that are being hated on.
And we just want to show that we will not allow hate in Newnan or Coweta abroad, or we do not allow hate in anywhere. We just want to show that our people are united all across the board.
And again, about 10 protesters were arrested. A few minutes ago, the police chief of Newnan, Buster Meadows, said, "I am very relieved there were no injuries on this day. A First Amendment day," he called it, uneventful. One side had its say, the other side had its say, and then everybody just went home. Reporting live from Newnan, John Schierick, 11 Alive News.
Live for us in Newnan. Thank you very much. One of the questions we were asked on our Facebook page, why aren't Newnan residents just ignoring the neo-Nazi march downtown? Well, organizers of today's interfaith rally against hate told us that so many people looked the other way as the Nazi regime took control in 1930s Germany, and that they refused to allow a doctrine of racial purity to take hold again. Clergy from Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faiths, along with Newnan's mayor and city commissioner, came together for this counter rally. And for a complete wrap-up of what happened at today's rally in Newnan, be sure to visit our website, 11alive.com.